Welcome to the Tartan Touchdown episodes, where we take you through all of the latest stories and talking points from this week in the NFL. Well, that is, bar Monday Night Football, week 6 in the books, and then wee bits of everything. We are starting to get to that stage in the season where we know who teams are, even if they're not ready to admit it yet, and we even had some fisticuffs. Now, this man, thanks to the gods of Thursday Night Football, had Sunday off. Now, I always enjoy it when I get to watch Red Zone without the worry due to my team appearing on primetime. However, as a Browns fan, appearing on primetime is not something we ever need to be used to. So yes, I am joined by Gav. Now, on episodes every week, we are going to take you through the big stories of the weekend and discuss some of the key aspects for the slate of games. Now, last time me and Gav were on, I had to apologise in the opener. I had to apologise to him for giving him flashbacks for the first game we were going to talk about. This time round, no such apology is required. Gav, cometh the hour, cometh the scat man.
I mean, I don't know if you're really meant to claim victory Monday when you played in Thursday Night Football, but the way the Giants season's gone so far, and again, given they were playing against the Eagles, I will absolutely take this because, I mean, we talked about, we're going to discuss later on about who we think some of the teams are. I really don't know who these Giants are, but I'll tell you right now, it's dangerous, but for the first time in a long time, we have hope in New York, or, well, Vichy for me.
Well, do you know, I suppose that actually is. And don't get me wrong, yes. Okay, so we had a game. Giants beat the Eagles. They beat the brakes off the Eagles, 34-17. Monday Night Football at MetLife. It was glorious. However, that's a great story, and we like that. It's not saving the Giants season. I don't think there are many Giants fans out there that are going, Super Bowl, Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbull Super Bowl this year. But it's a franchise, as I can say this from the Browns' perspective. Gav, me and you have talked many times before about the very distinct feeling you have backing a team that you're aware success will be limited. You know that before the season starts. But there's such a buzz now about the Giants, thanks to Scatterbo and Jackson Dart. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, if you actually look at it, I mean, there's a number of players with this team that have actually been drafted over previous seasons. I mean, Dexter Lawrence was part of the same class as Daniel Jones. Andrew Thomas, the tackle, again, drafted in recent years. So actually, the Giants, at least with their first round picks, and we won't talk about Kadarius Toney, but draft wise, they've actually been reasonably well, but it's just not been coming together. It's not been coalescing. I don't know if we can fully put it on the quarterback situation because Daniel Jones, again, we'll talk about it later, he's doing pretty well elsewhere. But there is just a real energy about this team, and it really is the rookies. We saw Russell Wilson get pulled after week 3, and we've just decided we're going to go with the youth movement. Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterbo, they're making plays, they're bringing energy. I mean, we've both seen them just like hype bros after the game. People are excited in New York, and I mean, I am lucky enough to have seen 2 Super Bowl wins in my fandom, but the last decade has been rough. And now, like I say, first time a long time, there's hope, there's excitement. And there's a few teams that are on the comeback trail. I'm not prepared to say we're back, baby, but I am excited.
I suppose the thing for me with this one, and I suppose if you look at the comeback trail over the concept of a franchise as opposed to a season, that's, I suppose, maybe where do you cautiously, very, very cautiously, this is like the end of Gladiator, there was a dream once that was the Giants. Do you see that coming back maybe? Where it's something where you're building foundational pieces. You have and we know rookie quarterbacks is a dangerous, dangerous game to play. But you've got Jackson Dart looking good. You've got Scatterbo, who is, I thought Jameis was the ultimate hype man. I think it could actually be Cam Scatterbo. We know that Malik Neighbors is injured, but he's still there. He's still so young. You've got Sexy Dexy. You've got just pieces throughout that team where when you look at it, do you as a Giants fan think, do you know what? This year, we won't get ahead of it. But are we building something that could actually compete in this division?
Well, I think, it is a tough division. The Eagles, despite the recent challenges, they are a strong team. They're a well-run team. I think similarly with the Commanders, that's a franchise like the Giants have struggled a lot in recent times, but they do seem to be, making better decisions than they have in a long time. So I think that the East is always going to be competitive compared to recent seasons where you're kind of ashamed to admit, like, we've had bad starts several times in the last few years. And you get to a point where you're like, don't want to say this, but should we tank? Yeah, we'd probably better tank. Actually, no. You're thinking, well, maybe we don't make the playoffs, but let's make a run of it. If we get to, obviously it's a 17 game season now, but if we get to round about that 500 mark, if you can even get to the end of the season, it's like maybe, we get into the wild cards, you win a game, and, that's fine. But we're at a stage now where you have, like you say, you have the foundations. It's not a Super Bowl winning team. It's not even a team that's got a deep run, but there are elements there. Now we have a run game. We have a quarterback who, let's maybe not get ahead of ourselves in terms of the ceiling, but definitely looks to be serviceable. And I guess the other thing is the defense is there. And that's always been the foundation of the Giants' success. Really, any time that they've won a Super Bowl has been able to get after the quarterback, whether that's going back to the years of LT or whether they're talking about Strahan and OC and all these guys. So obviously, that's one thing that hasn't changed over the decades, is that you need to be able to get after the opposition's QB. So yeah, there's a lot of good things happening in New York or New Jersey, if we're being pedantic. But yeah, for the first time in a long time, we have hope.
Now, do you know what? I can't believe me of all people, the anti-rookie QB person. I'm going to come in and say this because at the end of the day, before the season started, we knew that your defensive unit was going to be incredible. That, the pieces you had on D, unless you started losing players left, right, and centre. More about that later. There are some other teams to discuss. But unless you lost hundreds of pieces, your defense was always going to be great. We knew that in terms of receivers. Yes, okay, Nabels is out, but you had the elite receiver. We didn't know that Scatterable was going to be Scatterable, but we've seen what the Giants can do when they've got an elite running threat. We've seen Saquon recently. So that was always the question mark, was that quarterback room. And now this is one of the bits that came out of the weekend that's just a brilliant restat. Well, Jackson Dart has become the third quarterback in the Super Bowl era to rush for at least 50 yards in each of his first three starts. Do you know who the other two are? There's only three that have ever done it. They're both current players, right? They're both current starters, obviously. Guess who the other two are? Quarterbacks who in their first three career starts have managed to rush for at least 50 yards. And it's indicative of the way the league's changing this for me.
Let's go with Lamar.
He's one of them.
He's one of them.
Who's the other one?
I'll take Kyler in Arizona.
No, is a man that you just beat the brakes off. Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts, yeah.
This is, and don't get me wrong, we know you can't just be a rushing quarterback. See Anthony Richardson. You have to have both. You need to be able to do both. You need to keep the defense honest. They've got to respect you through the air. Dare we say it that the Giants might have a quarterback who helps them complete that puzzle, that takes that locker room, brings it together. Now, this is devastating for me because I was just hoping for another year of Jameis as a starter somewhere, just purely for Jameis social media content. But it does look like it. He's looked through the air. He's looked accurate. He's played. I was about to say he's played clean. I'm now just going to double checking. Yeah, no, he did. He played clean. I'm going to say there's cause for hope in New York, and I can't believe I'm saying it out loud.
Well, one half of New York will maybe.
Yes, quite correct. Quite correct. Of all the teams that play in the kind of the greater New York area, two of them have cause for hope. One of them we'll talk about later. Now, we can't talk about this game without flipping it on its head. We have just watched an Eagles team go back-to-back losses. Now, this is a team who, forever, just did enough. And they went and they played scrappy games. And it was, to borrow a soccer ball analogy, it was the mark of champions, that you didn't need to go out and cuff everybody 30-0. That's not how it works. You need to grind out the crappy results where you win, 21-18. You need to grind those out sometimes. They're not doing it now. And we've seen it earlier on in the season where we had the big, you've not even got 100 yards, but we won the game. You still didn't do tremendously well, but now you aren't winning the games. Should we be seeing the Sons of Philadelphia starting to get a bit concerned? Is this something that are we ringing the panic alarm quite yet?
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one because they started 4-2, and we kind of joke actually about some of the rivalries. Like actually, the Eagles. Maybe it's because I don't have to deal with Philly fans on a daily basis, but I don't really have any issue with the Eagles as a Giants fan. Well-run team, and you've got to respect what they've done. But I do think that I don't think it's panic stations, but I definitely think there's some yellow lights are kind of starting to glow in Philly. Like you say, to lose 2 back-to-back, I think, it's a competitive league. Nobody's perfect already at this stage in the season, so it's okay to lose a game here and there. It's a tough league. It's a competitive league. Once you start losing 2, people start to ask questions. And even looking ahead to next week, and actually the week after, maybe reference in this one, Philly have to go to Minnesota, which that's not a guaranteed get back game. I mean, I would probably say that is a test game for who they are. Minnesota, not an amazing team this year, not a bad team by any stretch. That is a game for me that if the Eagles are serious about what they want to do this season, be championship contenders again, I predict them to go back to the Super Bowl. I look at that game and think, if that's going to happen, they need to go back and win that game. Because if they lose that, their next game is up against the Giants in Philly, admittedly, but the Giants team that just smashed them. There's no bye weeks. You've got Giants now bringing this confidence. You could go conceivably from a 4-0 start to 500. That's really when that yellow light starts to get a little orangey in Philadelphia. So yeah, I think at this stage, there's a few eyebrows starting to be raised. We know certainly AJ Brown is one who is not happy bunny in Philadelphia. Absolutely can turn it around at this stage, but they're definitely at a stage where there's some work to be done.
And yeah, it is this one. The season, we are starting to figure the season out. The season isn't sussed yet. We've got a long time to go. There's a lot is going to change between now and when we start getting playoff spots secured and all of this type of chat. So no, are the Eagles really struggling yet? No, they're not yet. But that's some scary warning signs. Now, because as we say, this was the comeback game. Let's not kid ourselves on. We all know what the narratives were leading into the game on Thursday night. That, right, this is it. Eagles, they took a loss last week. Everybody raised an eyebrow. But it's the Giants. They'll come in, they'll beat the brakes off the Giants in MetLife, and then everyone's right, okay, yeah, it's fine. As you were, everything's okay. One of the things for me that jumped out is obviously that didn't happen. So we are then asking questions. One of the things that jumps out at me, I am somebody who has great joy at slagging off Jalen Hurts. I love him in fantasy football. Fantasy football, he's absolute gold. Actual football, I've got questions. Last night, Thursday night, he showed out as a passer. He put up just off 300 yards, but the majority of it is going to Dallas Goedert. As you're looking at things like that and you're saying, right, hang on a minute, you have got AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. Now, okay, yeah, AJ Brown put up 80 yards. He actually did, particularly when you consider this season. He put up his best game of the year so far. But it's this kind of thing. Did the Eagles abandon their identity a little bit in this game? Or did the Giants' run defense just say, no, you are not permitted to be the Eagles tonight? Because we had Saquon, of all people, which must be, as a Giants fan, it must be nice to have limited Saquon to 58 yards. But is that what we've seen here, that you made the Eagles play in a way that they're not comfortable with? They weren't able to set the run game, set the tempo of the game, and that was it. Because
Yeah, I think that you're calling it exactly right. So the Eagles, when they're at their best, we saw it in the postseason last year, they were genuinely able to impose their will on teams. Saquon could run over everybody, and Hurts was making the throws. He was Super Bowl was defined by just absolute daggers. Devonta Smith to AJ Brown. He was hitting all of his targets. And I mean, you mentioned obviously the Saquon narrative. I'm going to be very diplomatic, like Cam. I don't think so much it's about sticking it to Saquon, but absolutely, if your opposition has an elite running back and you can bottle him up, then that is a tremendous source of satisfaction, no matter who they are or who they played for. So, yeah, I think that's a great thing to see. And as I say, maybe there's just you're knocking a team that's had a lot of swagger, bit of dominance up to this point, just knocking them off their stride. Eagles have been there before. They had a slow start last year. People are starting to ask questions. So now that naturally becomes, well, what are they going to do about it?
Well, and that is, it's going to be the question. What are they going to do? They've got 2 games coming up now, and yeah, it is likely to be a JJ McCarthy-less Vikings that they're going to be up against next. We'll wait and see. He might play, he might not. Even if he does play, I'm not sure that he's at a spot yet where you're going to be tremendously fearful of JJ McCarthy compared to Carson Wentz. So that maybe does look like a comeback game for them, although the Vikings defense, said as a Browns fan that got to watch them live in London, that Vikings defensive unit is legit. It's going to give any team pause. Although, well, I say that, we did run Quinshon Judkins straight through them so Saquon could feast. But it's going to be something, as you say, they get rematch time against the Giants, and that is going to be a game to watch. Now, on the roster of games to watch, it wasn't actually about the game. It was about the end of the game when somebody said bad things to Juju, so everyone started fighting. Which, I don't know, did you catch the fight at the end of the KC game?
Yeah, I did, and God, it was such a strange one because actually, I don't know if something was said there because actually it was all quite cordial until it really wasn't, and it all just seemed to, you just seemed to blow up. And I think Branch managed as he's playing through an injury as well. So, I guess if he's going to be dealing with suspension, perhaps it's tactical. He's like, well, might as well. I'm nursing, nursing a wee twinge, but yeah, I mean, it just feels daft, really, doesn't it? You've lost the game. Dan Campbell is all happy about biting off kneecaps. But the fact is, he doesn't want to see his players throwing fists. So, yeah, not a great moment for the Lions at all. But on the flip side, the Chiefs. We talked about some of these teams saying we're back, baby. Chiefs back to 500.
So for anybody that didn't catch it, so the game finished 30-17 to the Chiefs. They pulled ahead by the half and really didn't look back. But at the end of the game, you've got Brian Branch tries to go up to, I was walking by Patrick Mahomes, who tries to put the hand out to shake his hand, and it's very obvious that he doesn't want to shake hands. So Mahomes, to be fair to Mahomes, this is the room, and kind of just withdraws his hand, gives him a little pat in the back, and that's the end of it. Then Juju decided that was wrong, and someone had to say something about it. What he said, I've got no idea. But he then tried to shake hands with him, and he has insisted on shaking hands. And it's then started fists are flying, and everybody gets in about it. And it's just chaos. But yeah, at the end of the day, I suppose one of the big talking points for this is and do you know what? Do you know what? I retract the we. I was very vocal and very, very dismissive of Kansas City. I've watched them at the start of the season. I was not impressed. Really didn't see the KC that we have used to been seeing being perennial Super Bowl appearances, if absolutely nothing else, over the past couple of years. And so far this year, they just really hadn't looked like it. However, in this game, they come out, and this isn't a game against the Panthers, the Titans, the Browns. This is a game against the Super Bowl hopeful Detroit Lions, who are healthy, who have got I've not checked the Giants injury report. They've got the vast majority of their pieces anyway. And yeah, KC ran out comfortable winners. As I say, going into the half, you are, 13-10 up, and you don't look back from that point. So, are the Chiefs back? Are we seeing the evil empire restore authority and restore itself to their, as I say, through gritted teeth, rightful place? It's worth adding at this point that they are still third in the division, but they're third in the division by one game.
Yeah.
Are we seeing them really step up in a kind of reasonably major way?
We've definitely seen them step up. And, it's only week 6 in an 18 week season. Momentum is everything. And, slow start, admittedly, but they're one game back from a Chargers team and a Broncos team who, off-season darlings for a lot of people, but yeah, I don't think they've set the world on fire either. So, are they back? Are they making a deep run? I don't know, but if you are one of these people that really don't want to see the Chiefs too well, then you have cause to be worried this season, because I think no matter what happens, this is a team that is going to make the playoffs, perhaps as a wild card or as a lower seed, but they are going to go cause some upsets right the way through the season. Some Chiefs fans would maybe say it's not fair to call it an upset, but I think obviously anytime you're the road team, that's usually what it is. Yeah, I think that they've been through this enough to know how the game works. You've got Andy Reid, you've got Pat Mahomes. It doesn't really matter who the receivers or the running backs seem to be in this team. They're always going to be there or thereabouts. And given that there's no runaway alternative contender in that division right now, yeah, I think they're going to be a threat for the rest of the year.
I'm just loving that we've hit the point in the timeline where we can say the Chiefs winning is some form of shock. If absolutely nothing else, that makes me happy. For all the Kansas City fans out there listening, it's not that I hate your team, I just hate any team that's successful. So, okay, in order to make me happy, yes, the Chiefs do look at their back, but we're going to talk about a team that is not so much at their back, they are retaining the consistency to which we are all accustomed for them. The New York Jets, a doors company, so I love talking about the Jets because they are possibly one of a very, very elite group of teams in the league, in that they are actually worse than the Browns. So, do you know what? This is the question, I suppose, with this game, and it's what everybody looking at this is asking. This is, you know, I wasn't going to read this out. Just totally, I am going to read it out. 9 completions of 17 attempts, 45 yards, an average of 2.6 yards passing, 9 sacks for 55 yards lost. That is a net negative 10 yards on passing, a quarterback rating of 9, and a passer rating of 58.7. Should the Jets be considering a change at quarterback? At the end of the day, are we seeing what the Bears got out of? The Bears apparently look like they've made a good move at quarterback. Who would have thunk it? Didn't expect to say that this week or any other week or year. But they got out of Justin Fields. He went to Pittsburgh. He looked okay in Pittsburgh, to be fair. He has now went to the Jets, who sought him out. I need to add, he didn't just fall into their lap. They actively sought out Justin Fields. Well, he had a good week 1. And yeah, it's not looking great. Are we seeing the Jets looking like they really need to actively consider a change at quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, no offense, Jets fans, and that's a question, by the way. No offense, because you you were going backwards in the passing game. I mean, Aaron Glenn comes in, highly respected defensive coordinator from the Lions, former Jet as well, should be said. You think actually, that could be a great appointment for him. And we know sometimes when a defensive coordinator comes in, it's not always the best thing for the offense. You need to have the coordinators, you need to have the coaching staff to support that. And that's fine because, there's 3 phases to the game of football, and there's different ways to win. But even if you look at the Ravens, the legendary Ravens defense as an example, Trent Dilfer was still serviceable. And we can talk about all these other teams. I mentioned the Giants and, Eli, again, maybe not, well, he wasn't the first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback, but he could absolutely get the job done when he needed to, even if he was riding his defense at times. There's just something very wrong with this organization. And I don't think that that's a hot take by any stretch. What's interesting is that last year, after the trip to London, Woody Johnson actually let go of the head let the head coach go. And now that the Jets are looking at 0-6 with an absolutely abysmal offensive display. I mean, to be fair, defensively, they only gave up 13 points. They actually scored 2 because they logged a safety. So actually, the defense isn't doing too badly. But I mean, to only be kicking field goals in the game is inexcusable. There was real problems in this game, particularly at halftime, where the Jets had the ball at halfway. There was about 20 seconds in the clock, and I think it was 4th down. And you're thinking, okay, fair enough, you're going to let the clock run. And actually, they just let the clock run out. And Aaron Glenn, I think I said at the time, he had a look in his face like he was playing 4D chess. Now, maybe given how the stats panned out, it probably wasn't worth throwing it. But
You've got to try. You've got to make the effort.
Hard to try. And this is a team that, whether it's the players, the coach, there just seems to be no confidence whatsoever. And they've really got to make a change. I suppose there will be Jets fans seriously thinking we need to tank to try and find an option at quarterback. That's a tough slog if you go that route. Yeah, Justin Fields is not the answer. I mean, I think it's looking increasingly likely that Aaron Glenn is going to be the first coaching casualty.
No, it's just in that play at the half, that summed up the Jets. Because as I say, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know what the success percentage of a Hail Mary is. It's low. We all know it's low. It's a message. It's about morale. As you said earlier, it's about momentum. It's about giving your team something. Because the Jets were receiving in the second. So even if you don't get it, if it's something where it's really hotly contested and you're close, it gives your team a bit of oomph going into the second half. And it just says so much about the complete lack of faith that the organisation, the coaching staff have in Justin Fields. They're not even really letting him run either. It's not like you could turn around and say, like Anthony Richardson, who we mentioned earlier on the show, yeah, okay, you don't really want Anthony Richardson throwing, but the man's about 84 foot tall and weighs 3 tons. You just let him hold the ball and run at people and he's going to have some successes. That was part of Justin Fields' game. He's mobile, he's in, he's out, he can slip tacklers. No, he had 7 attempts on the ground for 31 yards, which is just grim. Now, yeah, okay, your cause for hope, I suppose, coming out of New York is that defence did look good, but I'd query that a bit, and it goes against my preseason call where did that offense look good? That defense look good, or is the Broncos offense just not quite what we saw at the end of last year? Bo Nix looked electric towards the tail end of last season, and it's why many people, myself included, were very high on them in the offseason, but they have just not been looking incredible on offense. Defense, yes. Wow, that Broncos defense is great. But we knew that. And the question was going to be, is Bo Nix going to be able to lead this offense to more than a nice, respectable season? Because the Broncos are looking to try and go further. And you're not seeing it this year yet anyway.
Not in what we've seen so far. But all I would say with the Broncos is, from their perspective, a win's a win. They've still got a winning record. There's a platform. They have a bit of time. But you're right. I think maybe not living up to the preseason hype.
Yeah. Right. Now, we couldn't have this show this week without talking about one of the biggest stories in football of the moment. And tell you what, I am just going to give you a list of names and you tell me what they all have in common. We have Curtis Rourke, Jordan James, Trent Taylor, Jordan Watkins, Brandon Ayuk, Jacob Cowling, George Kittle, Spencer Burford, Ben Barch, Isaac Alarcon, Brock Purdy, Joanne Jennings, Ricky Pearsall. I'm going to stop there, and that's only one aspect of this team. That is the number of players on the San Francisco 49ers offense who are carrying some form of injury designation. Sorry, Isaac Alarcon is suspended. My word. And as we know, last night they lost Fred Warner, and it's looking like that's going to be the year done for him as well. Like, is there a more cursed team in football?
It is hard to see it, especially, teams will always go through a bad run with the injuries, and this is a bad run. The Lions had one Last year it was particularly pronounced, but so did the 49ers, and it's happened again. And I mean, it's hard not to feel bad for them as a team, as a fan base, because actually this is a well-run organisation. This team can deal with some of these injuries. We've seen it before. Uh, Particularly with running backs, they can just plug anyone in behind the line and just keep churning out monster games. I mean, Mac Jones came in, was doing a grand old job, 4 and
Jones looked
1.
great. He looked fantastic.
I took this Niners team to win on the road, and I was kind of looking at this. I think it was still a one-score game late in the fourth. Thought, yeah, maybe you guys can still do it. I think this is a team that's going to keep playing. It's going to keep on fighting. It's not like the Jets and some other teams we talked about where there's, there's problems of their own making. There's a lot of bad luck here. I think, potentially the Niners are still a team that finishes round about the 500 mark, because I think they'll keep playing. But yeah, I mean, this is rough for any fan base. And yeah, I guess you're just hoping, can you make some moves, whether it's some free agency or before the trade deadline? Can you get Brock Purdy back? And just, try to kind of keep yourself afloat. But it's a great one for a team that started 4 and 1.
Trade moves, they need to get the Costco card out. They don't need individual players. They're going to the cash and carry. They are buying in bulk because they have got that much missing. It's mad, but they are still playing fairly well. Kendrick Bourne, who's seen this coming? Kendrick Bourne all of a sudden was a relevant NFL player. It's mad, but it is, as you say, there is a huge amount of it with games like this that or not games like this, but with teams are having patches like this, it's bad luck. And, you can't legislate for injuries. Although, given how frequently the Niners seem to be constantly injured, I would maybe check what jerseys their, medical team own. I would have a look, is all I'm saying. But it's wild. And I don't know, this is a bit for me that I suppose, as a big fantasy head, and for all the fantasy players out of there, Christian McCaffrey's still healthy. No one quite understands how. He's sucking the life force out of everyone else in that team. It's about the only relevant part of that offense that's still vertical. It's mad. And then we are seeing from the other side of this game. So obviously, this game, as much as we're talking about how they are injury riddled, but they did look good. They still did lose to the Bucs, 30-19. My spirit animal, Baker, MVP caliber season so far. He is the super early hot take for it. I don't know if you've seen the interview with Tez Johnson after the game, and he was being asked, about his crazy multiple backflip touchdown celebration, and he confessed that he actually got confused and thought the fans were chanting MVP at him. Which, I'm all for that kind of hope that he has for himself with his, his first touchdown grab of his career. That's it. I have arrived. I am the MVP. Yeah, I mean? They got Baker is just doing Baker things this year, and it's all looking good for the Bucs so far. And they're a team with their own massive run of not as many injuries, but talk about impact injuries. There's no Bucky Irving, no Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin, and I'm sure the list is longer. So yeah, there are two teams that are struggling with injuries, but in as much as, Mac Jones looked good for the Niners. I will not say different. Back up for a reason. Baker has shown that he is. We were talking about it last year. Should he have been in an MVP conversation with his performance last year? He's really making a strong case for it this year. Right. It's time to start moving on now. This is talking about MVP at way too early. MVP conversations. There's only one man we can be talking about, and I promise he's not named after the dog. It's Indiana Jones. Yeah, another game where the Colts walked away 31-27 winners over the Cardinals. The big story for this for me is Daniel Jones. What is going on? Are we just seeing something where he's found his fit? He's just found the system, the team, the roster around about him that just works? Or is this just a freaky one-season deal?
I mean, it's hard to say. We talk about this sometimes with rookie quarterbacks and the sophomore slump, where they're hot for they're hot for a year and then people figure them out. Obviously, Daniel Jones has been around in the league for I think 6 years now. So there's plenty of tape on the guy. If you want to know what his tendencies are, it's all there to see. Granted, I mean, sometimes this can happen. We saw it with Sam Darnold last year, got hot early, kind of leveled off. I wouldn't say collapsed, but leveled off later in the season. So I guess that's something we want to keep an eye on with Jones in Indy. But he's flying at the moment. I guess the other thing we should say is one of the reasons that the Giants reportedly drafted Daniel Jones originally was because of his resilience. He was like a quarterback that actually had to run for his life even in college. This is a tough player. He didn't have it easy in college. Definitely didn't have it easy in New York. So this is a tough player. He's got wheels on him. He's a smart player, and maybe it's just getting away from the big New York market, going to a team with the Colts where it's a bit quieter, not the same level of expectation, whether that's justified or not. Yeah, having those new surroundings. Because you look at that division again, there's no standouts. You've still got Tennessee very much in a rebuilding year. Houston, we don't know what they are. It's really going to come down to the Colts and the Jaguars in this one. And it's really exciting one to watch for a division that we've slated. That there's definitely something to keep our eye on.
This is a division that we have slated with very good reason. For many, many years. Sorry, Sarah. But it's a bit funny. So it is something because we've got Indy who look like a fairly complete football team. You know what I mean? There's nothing in there that you would look at and obviously say that's a big weakness of that team. Yeah, and as we've said, the Jags have, other than this week, taken a big step forwards. This week, not so good. As we've seen the joy of Sam Darnold. I was going to say giving them a doing, but he's really not. It wasn't. It was quite a close game, that, to be fair. Not quite as close as their performance last week against KC, where they won by a nose. Not a phrase I'd ever think I'd get to say in an NFL context, winning by Trevor Lawrence's nose. But that was it. But it's now we're now seeing questions raised around the Jags, particularly coming up against tougher teams. It was a narrow win against KC. It wasn't a win against the Seahawks. Tennessee. Cam Ward needs to work on grip strength. I don't know if you've seen that play where he just hit the ball out of his own hand. And I don't know how that quite gets statted out. Does that count as a fumble forced by the offense? If he does it to himself, does he get to claim that? Yeah, things are not great in Tennessee. I will die on the hill, but I just don't think CJ Stroud's very good. Okay, that is going to wrap up our quick reflections and thoughts about all things that have happened in week 6. And it is time, as it always is, to look ahead, to look to the future and think to ourselves, right, what are we looking forward to next week? So do you have one? What is your big game for next week that you have really got your eye on, Gav?
Yeah, I mean, there's two, and I guess the first one I'll talk about quickly because we've already mentioned it a little bit is the Eagles against the Vikings, which is maybe not on paper is maybe not the most exciting game, but it's the most fascinating one because as we've talked about the Eagles with their issues on the road in Minnesota, can they bring it all back and get back to winning ways? That's going to be a really exciting one to see. I think the other one I've got circled is after the painstaking show that the London fans had to see between the Broncos and the Jets yesterday, Rams v Jaguars at Wembley.
Yeah.
That's one that should be putting bums in seats. I know that Spurs didn't quite sell out yesterday. That's an interesting one that I'm sure we could deep dive another time. But Rams v Jaguars on paper, that looks like a great game between two exciting teams, and great obviously to see that side of the pond. So definitely be tuning into that one at 2:30 on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I do love it when we've got the international series in the go because it means that for us UK fans, we can do what the Americans do and we can properly make a day of NFL action. That is a game that, no offence, Broncos, no offence, Jets. I'm going to say that I wasn't like racing home to get in front of the TV to watch that one. I certainly watched it, but I was sometimes doing a bit of cooking, bit of bacon in the background while I had the Jets Broncos on. This one is going to have my full undivided attention because it's potentially a huge game, not just for both of these teams, but just in terms of the standard of play we should be seeing. Big ones for me, looking into next week, and I'll save my biggest one to wind us up. I got to go with the divisional matchup. I got to go with the Steelers at the Bengals. I am becoming increasingly anti-Bengal as time goes on. I keep finding Bengals fans telling me that they're back and that they're going to win it all and that they're going to do everything, even though nothing's been done with their defense in forever and their offensive line has got more holes in it than a colander. Flacco played clean football this week. I will give them that. The big difference that we've seen between this weekend's Flacco and the Flacco that we've seen so far this year with the Browns, he stayed clean and he has two of the best receivers in football at his disposal. Yeah, certainly what I would put forward is the best wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 pairing in the league with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So, yeah, he looked okay. He had a good second half. He is still 55,000 years old, and that line is not great. And the Steelers' defense, particularly the defensive line, I can say from watching them last night, are looking good. So I have concerns for Joe Flacco's safety, but it is one where if the Bengals can not necessarily win, but if the Bengals can withstand the kind of test that the Steelers' defense is going to put them under, then I think it maybe tells us quite a lot about both of those two teams going forward. I do think Pittsburgh fans, and this has got nothing to do with the fact that I am a Browns fan, I think your record is flattering as opposed to earned. I really don't see you as a team that you'll be one and done in the playoffs. As is tradition, you'll be one and done in the playoffs because you're going to come up against a good team and it's not going to go well. I'm really sorry. And Bengals, this is where we find out if you don't know how to tank properly. And you then go and you string together some really unlikely wins and wind up with like a draft pick in like the above 10, which would just be so Bengals. It would be unreal. And then what I think...
I can comment on that one very quickly. The other interesting thing, we've not talked too much about the Steelers. Crazy as it is, if they beat the Bengals, they have a 3-game lead already on the entire division.
Oh, it's wild. You look, right, don't get me wrong. In the AFC North this year, the Browns are as advertised. We knew what we were before the year started, and we have lived up to the hype. A burrowless Cincinnati Bengals are equally as advertised. We know the Bengals are nothing on defense. We watched them all last year. They were successful because Joe Burrow threw for 1,000,000 yards in every single Sunday. Don't Joe Burrow, we knew that wasn't going to happen. And the Ravens are pretty inexplicable. You know what I mean? They had two really tight losses against really good teams, and then they have the Lamar injury. And yeah, this is probably just the Ravens' year is done by bad luck, and the Steelers' year continues by what I'm going to put forward as some pretty good luck that they're getting. The other side of it, to wrap us up, what I'm going to put forward will be game of the week next week. It's certainly the one that I think will have the most people intrigued about it. Monday Night Football, Tampa Bay at the Lions. We are seeing the Lions are hurting. Losing the game against KC stings, and Tampa Bay are absolutely flying. And will the Tampa Bay wide receiver room have anyone in it? You know, are we really, really going to be watching Tampa Bay run out with who would it be even? Sterling Shepard? Is it Sterling Shepard going to be next week's wide receiver 1 in Tampa? That's an intriguing thing to see. A lot's been made of Baker this year, principally by me, because I know what love looks like, and it's this. There is a time, though, when you need your weapons. You need weapons to step up. And will they have much of anyone back in time? Will they be fully fit? Will they be just kind of getting there? I think it's going to be a fascinating matchup.
Yeah, I think that's one that, absolutely. You look at this one, I guess, with the Lions at home, the injury that the Bucks have, you would probably certainly favour home advantage in this one, but it is by no means a gimme. And we keep talking about, finding out who these teams are, and teams themselves finding out who they really are. That to me, again, is a must-win game for a championship contender. The Lions need to win that game after taking the L in Kansas. Buccaneers at 5-1, playing in the NFC South. They can probably afford to drop one, but if they go to Ford Field with the challenge that they have and come away with a win, then, that's a result that gets people talking.
Listen, you see this all the time, social media, you get like football tier lists, and you always have the top two are always juggernauts and Super Bowl contenders. And it's a big if the Bucks win next week, they beat the Lions, do they enter juggernaut territory? Are you talking about that the Bucks are then a team that you expect any given Sunday they're just going to play whoever and win?
I mean, particularly playing in the South where there's not a lot of competition. They've only dropped one game, so let's assume, and it's a big assumption that let's assume that they beat the Lions. They're 6-1. So they've got a good lead in the division. They've got a good lead in the conference because there's only a couple of teams in the entire league actually that have only got one loss already. Really competitive season. They are with an excellent shout of home field advantage. That means that playoffs could go through Tampa Bay. You don't need to worry about the cold weather. A lot of people say playoff football is cold weather football. It's January. It's for these northeastern teams and Kansas City and places like that. If you can bring the playoffs down to Tampa, then
Bring the cannons.
Baker Mania could be running wild.
It could be good. Right. That is going to wind this week's episodes up, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Gav, thank you so much for joining me, mate.
It's been a pleasure. Really looking forward to another great week of action.
Absolutely. And we've still got Monday Night Football to look forward to, folks. So enjoy that. And remember, give us a follow, subscribe, get involved, and talk to us on the socials. We've had a load of people talking to us on various social platforms over the last couple of weeks. It's been incredible. We love hearing from you guys, and we love getting your input. Until next week, I've been Brian, he's been Gav, and we'll catch up with you later.